This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
As a retired U.S. Navy commander and former university professor, Walt Morgan knows about management training. But too often, he says, companies buy professional coaching for their so-called senior leadership, overlooking middle-level positions. In this edition of Bizgnus Interviews, Walt Morgan explains why not training mid-level managers is costing organizations. You're talking about leadership for the middle as opposed to the top in organizations. Why is that important, and why wouldn't that just cause chaos?
So leadership in the middle, I think of leadership as impact. And if you think about investing, we always talk about investing early. Get your investment in early and then you'll get your dividends and it all works out. And you get to those later phases in your life and you say, oh, if only I would have invested early. I feel the same way about leadership. I view investing in the leadership in the middle and even earlier and later. I believe investing all the way through. But I think the middle of organizations is overlooked in our investment for leadership coaching, for leadership programs. But what if we could address the thing that was getting in the way of that teammate of yours earlier? What would that do to their impact over time for your organization and beyond? But if you could just change their leadership trajectory and then think about the impact longitudinally from that change, we could create so much more, I believe, if we invest earlier.
What about the middle person's manager, the next step up? Don't you have to deal with them so they don't feel threatened?
It's a very hierarchical way of looking at it. As their organizations flatten, yes, most people report to someone, and I acknowledge that. But this isn't production anymore. Most of the jobs that we're talking about tend to be built around creativity and relationships. Those are key components of the jobs. And something else, you bring the manager that we report to. An exercise I like to do is to explore what makes a good follower. What makes a good follower? Do you mind if I ask you that question? In your mind,
I don't
makes
have
a
an
great...
answer. I hope you have the answer.
I have a few answers. So great followers ask questions, they're curious, they're ambitious, they take initiative, they build great relationships, they're attached to outcomes that are aligned with the vision, and they're trustworthy, right? That's what makes a great follower. Turns out what makes a great follower is almost exactly what makes a great leader. So if we're investing in the middle, we're investing in followers and leaders, and that creates outcomes for our organizations.
Walt, as you have been taking this into the business world, what's been the reaction? Give us a couple of stories of what has worked and what you have learned from.
Yeah, so what has worked? Um, there's usually a long conversation around this, and not every business is willing to do this. And I think we have a lot to overcome in business culture to get to this place. So what has worked is when I have time to work with senior leadership, maybe even coach senior leadership, and they can see the impact and the benefits of coaching, and they understand what that creates in their life, then the question becomes, what would be possible for your team if everybody had this opportunity to grow? So really, it's not my idea, it's my curiosity and my partnership with individuals that leads to outcomes. And I would also say it has become more popular in the sense there's organizations out there that do like I'll just say the name, like Better Up is an organization that's very focused on creating accessibility for coaching at all layers of the organization. So I'm really um, attached to um, their mission around that. It's not dissimilar from my own. And as somebody who coaches one-on-one in a little bit more depth than some of the bigger organizations, I would invite anybody to be curious what's possible on your team and your organization if if you really invested on the leaders in the middle. And honestly, I think we've reached a place where most of us acknowledge that leadership isn't so much a designated thing. Management, maybe, but leadership is about influence and leadership is about impact. And yes, I think it's really important to invest in the C suite. And I think it's really important to invest in senior leaders and continue to ask ourselves what happens if we do invest in places like we give a lot of lip service to this idea that the real work happens in the middle, right? That's where we say it happens. That's who we always express gratitude when great things happen. That's who we always thank. But are we really backing up by investing in leadership at that level? And I'd be curious if many senior leaders sat down and looked where their leadership investment was going, if it was disproportionate to where they believe the outcome of the organization is. And if there is a gap, what does that really say about what they truly believe or what's possible for a redirection or a reinvestment?
Now, Walt, you know what they do to messengers who bring bad news.
Yes, that's what leadership is, the willingness to step into being that messenger, to willingness to be an agent of change, a willingness to make things better. I celebrate the feedback. Look, not everybody, the research is pretty clear, right? There is an ROI on coaching. In fact, American University will tell us that there's a 788% return on coaching dollars. And that's a lot about retention. That's a lot about productivity of the team, outcomes, productivity, and value of the company itself. 788% return on coaching. So why not? Like if you're getting that return, why wouldn't you continually invest? And where would you invest? Let's be really thoughtful about that.
When you approach an organization, do you designate people as leaders or do you sit back for a while observing what's happening? I hesitate to say this, but occasionally we would talk to somebody in the newsroom and say, you need to be a leader on this," and a blank look
Hmm.
spread across their face.
Hmm. No, that's a great question. So typically, I will be brought in to do either one-on-one coaching or coaching with a team. So let's say I'm doing one-on-one coaching. Um, I'm going to sit down with that individual at the beginning and ask them, what's what feels most important to you? What could you focus on that would further your impact? What's getting in your way? And that's actually about an hour and a half long conversation because the first thing isn't it, and the second thing isn't it, and the third thing probably isn't it either. But we're starting to get closer. We're starting to get closer to something that is powerful, something that they believe, something that they might have been even afraid to express out loud before. But once they name it, and we can build that relationship, once we name that thing that is getting in their way, then the entire coaching program shifts in its orientation to that outcome. And it's not just a training thing, it's not just a practice thing. At the end of the 6 months, that individual, and I think many coaches feel this way, that individual will have embodied a transformation that gives them choice that they didn't have before to perform in that way that they couldn't perform before, do that thing that allows them to show up better. And they're going to show up better at work. They're going to show up better in their relationships at work. They're going to probably show up better outside of work. And they will feel invested in. They're more likely to stay with that organization. So not only will they be more productive in their relationships and their output and their productivity and their creativity and whatever it was that was getting in their way, um, they're just going to be more loyal and content within that organization overall.
Walt, how did you get to this point in your career? For our viewers and listeners, your career was largely in the military as a helicopter pilot for the Navy, correct?
Yes, so great question. Thank you. Um, so yes, I was a helicopter pilot. I was in the Navy for 23 years. If you go back to my home in rural Oregon on a ranch and go to my childhood bedroom, on the wall is a picture that I drew when I was 5. And it's a picture of a helicopter, and it says, "When I grow up, I want to be a helicopter pilot." I pretty much always knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so the Navy gave me a chance to go to college and gave me a commission when I graduated and sent me to flight school. And they said, "Oh, I'll bet you want to fly jets." I did pretty well in flight school. I said, "I don't want to fly jets. Like, I drew a picture when I was 5. I'm pretty attached to this idea of being a helicopter pilot." So I loved that. That was what I was supposed to do and how I was supposed to serve. And it was a powerful experience. And it's very much who I still am today. But I came to the end of that military journey and I retired. And I was at a crossroads. A lot of my squadron mates are flying commercial um, airliners now, or they're in defense contracting or consulting. And, and I just felt this nudge from the universe. Keep in mind also, the last 4 years in the Navy, I was teaching leadership at the University of Colorado, which is also my alma mater. So I'd been having this leadership, I'd say, a significant period of growth in how I understood leadership and identified as a leader. And I became very attached to serving others on their leadership journeys. So when I retired, I just felt this nudge that what I was supposed to be doing was around leadership development. So I put my name out there and said, "I'm a leadership development specialist, hire me." And nobody did for a long, long time. And in fact, I even had one hiring manager say to me when I circled back after not getting an interview, she said, "Yeah, so this is a leadership position, and you're in the military where there is no leadership because people just do what they told. So we didn't feel you were qualified." Like, it's amazing. It's amazing feedback. Thank you. Um, so eventually, a Fortune 200 healthcare company, DaVita, took a chance on me, and I was on what was called their wisdom team. And this was amazing because the wisdom team, it was in charge of like culture and leadership development and coaching and facilitation and team, everything. And it wasn't a kind of a subset of HR. It was parallel and separate to HR all the way up to the C-suite. So there's actually a chief wisdom officer at the very top, but we were distinct and separate. But that's how much DaVita cared about culture and how much they cared about leadership is it was given its own department. So um, it is also a very kind of emotionally forward culture, which is very useful for me because I learned after I retired from the Navy that I had probably neglected myself emotionally and spiritually for the last number of decades. I was very good at thinking, I was very good at doing, but my emotional development and my spiritual development, and not in like a religious tradition at all, just my greater sense of connection um, to everyone and everything, was a little undernourished. So my time at DaVita gave me a chance to focus on that, and that became a very steep journey. But what I learned in that, the things that allow us to show up better at work, at home, in our relationships, in our fulfillment, in the impact that we make through our lives, the way we grow is through everything that is us, through our bodies, through our minds, through our emotional selves, through our interpersonal selves, through our moral selves, through our spiritual selves. That is all combined and brought into our growth. I don't want to get too woo-woo on you because, at the end of the day, it's a very practical outcome. This is something that I want to do better, and in 6 months, you will be able to. And they're not small things. It's usually I'm trying to think of I mean, I always have about a dozen clients at any given time, so I have a lot of topics. But the topic might be um, to better trust my own instincts in order to make hard decisions, or to better handle feedback productively so that I can um, move forward confidently, or to better accept good enough um, so that I can trust others and focus strategically. These would be examples of topics. Like these are big things. These are transformational things. This isn't training. This is the focus on a human being, making a human being better. Did I?
How were
Go.
you able to do that? Surely you didn't do it all on your own.
No, no. I'm so grateful for um, everybody that has been so gracious to me and supporting me in my personal leadership journey. Obviously, there was a lot of people during my Navy years that invested in me and helped me grow and become a better leader. I would call those more mentors than coaches, but they were definitely leaders, right? Leaders making impact both on the mission and on people. Um, and then in the university environment, peer professors, peer faculty, people who are continually giving me um, ideas to think about and conversations to heighten my understanding around leadership and my identity. And then I attended coaching uh, a coaching certification program in Canada. Actually, has several iterations of it called Integral Coaching Canada. And the power of that methodology and the power of the coaches that coached me through that program um, were critical in my development and allowed me to support others better, fundamentally better. And then I always hire coaches, right? Like on a daily basis, I get to see the impact that coaching has on my clients' lives, this transformational impact. So why wouldn't I invest in that for myself? Why wouldn't I continually get better through the benefits of coaching? And that's no different to what I said earlier. If there's something that gives you a 788% ROI, why wouldn't you continually invest in that? That's exactly how I feel about coaching for myself.
Now, we need to tell our listeners and viewers how they can get more information about you and get in contact uh, without having to enroll at the University of Colorado.
Oh, well, I'd be happy to have a conversation around leadership with anybody or coaching or personal development, right? This is my passion. This is where I invest all of my time and my energy. You can hop on my website, which is tliftcoaching.com. So the letter T, Lift coaching.com, and you can find me via contact form there. It's probably the easiest way. You can hit me up on LinkedIn as well. I'll certainly reply to any messages that I see there. And again, happy to set up a conversation.
What would you like to add that we haven't talked about?
I would like to go back to my excitement about coaching sooner, earlier. And I've this last 2.5 years, 2 years, I guess, I have um, established a coaching program at the University of Colorado, which connects professional leadership coaches to students free of charge for the student. And there's a lot of great folks that are involved with this, and it has tremendous support from the University of Colorado, specifically through the Center for Leadership there. But I'm grateful to our coaches that coach in the program because they do it for very little. And I am grateful for my partners in establishing this program and for the researchers that are getting this really, really beneficial feedback so that we can better understand what it does mean to coach people younger. But anecdotally, I will share this with you. Um, the students that I coach are different developmentally than because most of my clients tend to be in that 40 to 60 age range. You know, maybe 35 to 60 would be standard. And they're great. I love all of my clients, and I'm honored to be part of their growth and their journey and to serve them. And I'm always delighted by this transformation that they make. And it's very, very important. But what I find with my college students that I coach is they make connections quicker. Just they are unencumbered by the imposition of business and life and all of it. They're open, their minds are free, they're hungry, they're engaged. And so oftentimes we'll be 20 minutes into a coaching session with a student, and it'll occur to me, we just accomplished in 20 minutes what normally takes an hour and a half with somebody who's a little bit more senior. So that is my anecdotal feedback around coaching at a younger age. Our minds are a little bit more open, and we're a little bit more adaptable in our youth. I mean, if you're willing to sleep on random couches and eat ramen noodles, then the chances are that you're open to a lot of things, including leadership development. So just another opportunity to share my excitement about investing in coaching at a younger age. I think it benefits our teams, our organizations, our society, our communities, all of it. I feel very strongly about that.
You've been watching the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.